how can one recognize who is chanting the holy name purely, since we don't know how a devotee acts in his private life? Private life. Srila Prabhupada said that a sadhu doesn't have a private life. There's no private life. It's not that I'm a sadhu and then okay, don't bother me, and then you go out the back door and dress differently and go out to the pub. A sadhu doesn't have a private life. Well, what about a householder devotee? Maybe he does have a private life, but also if he's a devotee, he doesn't have a private life. His life is an open book. No private life. He has no other activity but service to Krishna. I've seen, especially when I was in Bengal and Orissa, I've seen many, what you could say, traditional householder devotees who, well, anyway, in the villages especially, there's no private life. The homes aren't very big. There are plenty of people living in them, and in the village, people just walk in and out of others' homes. There's no bell or guards or beware of the dog. No such thing. You just go in and out of people's lives. There is no private life, even in Indian village life. I mean, maybe, something. I mean, husband and wife, at some point they may have. Traditionally, even between husband and wife, there's not much privacy in traditional society. They don't even interact with each other that much, especially when they're young, in traditional Indian culture. This idea of private life, my own space, we don't find that much in Vedic culture. It's more coming from the Western world. What do you think? In Indian culture, is that I mean, now you're all from big modern cities, but I don't find that that's there. I mean, the whole idea of being so much individual. Rather, a person thinks of themselves, rather than thinking of themselves as an individual, they're a member of a family, or a village, or a caste, or whatever. You're not so much like all on your own. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Okay, go on with the question. Is it a good sign that while giving our attention to... Is it a good sign that while hearing, should be there, our attention to hear the holy name increases, as well as our desire to chant more? I don't really understand this question, so I won't. Anyway, the question is it a good sign if our attention to hear the holy name increases, as well as our desire to chant more? Is it a good sign? Yeah, sure. If you want to chant more, that's good. I'm hankering to associate with advanced devotees with pure motives, but it's so difficult for a fallen soul like me to distinguish properly. Sometimes I consider a certain devotee pure or serious, but then hear of some skeletons in his closet. So I become somewhat discouraged. Well, in this Kali Yuga, it's hard to find anyone without skeletons in their closet, or at least prior to coming to Krishna consciousness. In the modern age, I think once or twice devotees asked me about writing my life story. I said, better don't do that. Maybe from the day I walked into the temple. But anyway, there's, even then there's... nothing that special compared to anyone else. I mean, it wasn't that I was particularly degraded, just normally degraded like most other people. I mean, but it's not something you want to talk about. So we're all coming from fallen backgrounds, and we all have kusanskaras, or bad impressions, from the time before we came to Krishna consciousness. Or maybe even after we came to Krishna consciousness. Just living in a city like Bangalore, and definitely living in London, Sydney, New York, even while practicing Krishna consciousness, we're going to see and hear many things which are not suitable for our cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Or even if you look at a newspaper, it's a very dangerous thing to do. The modern Indian newspapers, they're becoming more and more like pornographic magazines. So these bad impressions and are there. They may sometimes become prominent in our minds. Even someone who's been practicing Krishna consciousness seriously for many years. But we should seek the association. What should we do in this circumstance? Seek the association of devotees who are seriously trying to be Krishna conscious. We can't expect that Rupa Goswami is going to come and manifest himself before us while we're chanting, but he does also. If we surrender to the acharyas in the parampara, then we do get the association of all the previous devotees, and all those devotees who are seriously trying in Krishna consciousness, whatever their bad background, they do get the mercy of all the great acharyas in parampara. So we can associate with the great devotees if we see their mercy. Instead of seeing the bad side, if we see the good side, just like I was told of an anecdote concerning Srila Prabhupada. One devotee told me this, that in India, one gentleman reported that he'd seen two of Srila Prabhupada's disciples physically fighting with each other, which was not that uncommon among Srila Prabhupada's Western devotees in India in the 1970s, for various reasons. One reason, they're coming from a very rough background, you could say. Many of them were from New York City, where, it's rough and tough place. And many of them found it very difficult to live in India for various reasons. Nowadays we find people from America coming to live in Bangalore. But in those days, India was culturally very different to the West, and not, and in many ways very difficult. I mean, we even find Indians now, in the cities, they can't sleep without air conditioning, and they get upset if the electricity goes off and all this kind of thing. They can't sit cross-legged. They're used to sitting all the time with tables and chairs. So the Western devotees, and in many ways, they found it difficult, maybe even to follow Krishna consciousness. Coming from a life of what they were doing before, And to come with all these rules and regulations, it might have been very difficult for them. So that sometimes broke out as... plus on top of that, Srila Prabhupada wanted them to do so many things, which to organize programs and preach in various ways. And so we found it very difficult. Sometimes they had physical fights. So one gentleman reported, being shocked, reported to Srila Prabhupada that he had seen two of Srila Prabhupada's disciples physically fighting. And Srila Prabhupada said, so I'm told, that you are surprised that they are fighting, but I am surprised that they're chanting Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada, despite the fact that his disciples in India, often people in India were shocked. They didn't seem to be like sadhus, but Prabhupada would defend them very strongly. He wouldn't accept any criticism of them. He would tell his own disciples, you should do like this, you should do like that. But he didn't accept public criticism of them, because he saw that they were sincerely trying to be Krishna conscious. So we can see that also. If we don't have the direct association of Rupa Goswami, then associate with devotees who are trying their best to follow in the footsteps of all the great acharyas. And don't be discouraged if someone is not on the level of Rupa Goswami exactly already. Or they may never... Who's going to be on the level of Rupa Raghunath and Bhaktivinoda Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada? So that's a very high level. But we can come to the level of pure devotion. That is their promise. Maybe some are already there. We don't have the eyes to see it.